Yeah, sure, it's a big celebration now, but only a couple days ago were we listening to this sound. Welcome to the last and final Coffee Break Tennis in Texas for 2018 at John Newcombe Tennis Ranch. Well, it's those damn tennis kids behind me again. They live here. They train 6 hours a day, getting to play tennis, living here at John Newcombe Tennis Ranch. I'm a little bit jealous. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we talk about Roger Federer's 99th title that he achieved today at the Basel Swiss Indoors. Also, we talk about a special guest that was sitting in Roger Federer's box during the Basel Swiss Indoors, and maybe not such a great guest to have. Bad news for Federer fans. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, 99 is fine, but he's got to get right back to work. Comment below, will Roger Federer play in the Paris Masters? We'll talk about his draw if he does decide to play, and of course we'll talk about what it means for Rafa and Djokovic. And a couple of random things I printed up on this paper right here in my very hands that I thought were interesting from the world of tennis. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis, the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world. I don't even know how to work this thing, but it looks cool. So as I said, we're here at the John Newcombe Tennis Ranch. Things are wrapping up here. We're losing light literally very quickly, so we'll try to make this a fast show. I didn't realize the sunset here in Texas is already 6:49. It's 7 o'clock now, so we are losing light every minute. They're just, again, they don't have lights on some of these courts. They get them on the clay over here, but no lights on those courts, so drills just wrapped up as it's starting to get dark. We'll blaze through this as fast as we can and look at some important things. But first, some of my takeaways from the Basel Swiss Indoors tournament, where Roger Federer, of course, won his 99th title. And if you saw the clip I played in the very beginning of the show, a little bit of yelling, a little bit of grumpy old goat, but it ended very well. And of course, when it ends very well for Roger Federer in Basel at the Swiss Indoors, und die Schweiz, it ends very well for the ball kids. Put it on the screen via satellite remote, Mr. Goat. On the tweeters from Nevin, who is Swiss. At Coffee Break 10s, don't you wish you were a ball boy in Basel? And why? Of course, because Roger's dishing out another pizza party for the ball kids. It's a tradition now. When Roger wins, he pays for the big pizza party for all the ball kids. Of course, Roger Federer's start on the ATP Tour was at a ball kid at that very tournament. I believe a Jimmy Connors match might have been one of his first ones, or at least one of the first ones where there was a picture taken that people look at today. This win also, this is from at the wild Ethan, or Ethan, depending on how you say it. Federer back to leading in most ATP 500 titles at 21, just one ahead of Rafa. And the latest on whether or not Roger will go to the Paris Masters, which of course, if he were to go there and win, he would have a shot at finishing the year as number one in the world, or at least finishing as number two. Federer said, I'll go back to Paris. I hope to play Wednesday evening. That's the plan. Let's see if it happens. Federer's plan is to travel to Paris on Tuesday. Play on Wednesday would be his first match, but he'll see how he feels tomorrow first and make a final decision. Of course, you got to see how the body feels the next day. This was not a straightforward win for Roger. The first match was tough. The match with Jan-Lennard Struff was pretty tough, but you know, the thing with a guy like Struff is you're going to get the errors that you expect. Against Gilles Simon, that is a little bit different. This is a guy who makes you play a ton of balls. I remember one point in particular when I watched most of the matches here, a little bit of all of them for sure, but you know, some of them I got to watch the whole way through. Been very busy. Me and Pete ran our own tennis clinic for Crunchtime Coaching here, which we'll put some video up soon so you guys can see a little bit of that. Of course, we're here for this right here, Tennis Fantasy Week with legends. Rod Laver was here, John Newcombe, of course, John Newcombe Tennis Ranch, what do you expect? Mark Philippoussis was here, a lot of awesome tennis players were here. So very busy, but I got to watch a lot of Roger's matches when I could and watch some of the replays later in the evenings. And I think the Gilles Simon match is probably the most interesting of the week. Of course, the Danny Medvedev, he took out Tsitsipas. That's becoming a very interesting rivalry to me. That was a 3-set match. Federer's win over Medvedev is probably the most impressive. You know, he pretty much demolished him. And of course, he just played him in Shanghai and had a very tough time. So does that mean Medvedev is getting worse or Roger's getting better? I think it means Roger's getting better. And just look at this Gilles Simon match here. In the first set, Roger had a total of 26 unforced errors in one set. That is a big deal. That is 13 winners, so double the unforced errors of the winners. That's not something you want to see. The fact that Roger found a way to win that set. I want to say, was Roger started off down 3-love in that first set? He was definitely down in the finals against Kopel, down 4-1 in the second set. It would have been so easy to lose one of these matches, is to make excuses, to tank that first set against Gilles Simon, to tank that second set today in the final against Kopel. But I'm very happy, and Federer fans around the world should be very happy to see Roger really dig in. He wants to add to that title count. He wants to get to 100, I'm sure. But the biggest thing is he wants to keep winning majors. If he's going to go into the Australian Open and have a chance to win it, he's going to have to do very well on these fast indoor courts. And he just knows how important it is to find the rhythm and to get the confidence he needs coming out of this year, get to the December training block where all the ATP players get in the best physical fitness they can in the gym while they have plenty of time to not have to worry about going to play tournaments, and then head into the Aussie Open feeling very fit and very confident. So a theme this year has been Roger Federer's first serve saving him in situations where the backhand's misfiring, where the forehand's not reliable, and even when the second serve is not very good. Roger has the record. I don't know though, because it's been so bad the last couple of weeks between Shanghai and Basel, Switzerland. Roger's second serve win percentage has been pretty poor. Let's see, what was it? It was 53%, which is acceptable on the ATP Tour. It's really not bad, but Roger had the average this year is 60% win on second. That is the best on tour for the year. Perhaps Djokovic might be a lot higher now. I'm not sure, but I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I would say Djokovic is pretty high. I mean, obviously, in Shanghai, the Djokovic second serve win percentage was through the roof. But, of course, Djokovic really struggled in the beginning of the year, had a totally different serve motion in the beginning of the year because of the elbow injury. So I'm guessing that makes his average for the year go considerably down. It's not reflective of how he is playing right now. And there's a deer running by there. I don't know if you guys will be lucky enough to see him. They're all over Newcombe Ranch. It's pretty cool, kind of like my backyard. I think there's more deer here, though. Anyways, but the point is the Roger Federer's second serve percentage has been an issue in Shanghai. It was an issue at the U.S. Open. It's not as good as it's been throughout the year. I think that's coming up. I think a big thing with that is not so much that he's not hitting great second serves or anything. I think it's just he's not able to win points because there's been so many loose errors. The forehand has been kind of unreliable, and the backhand has not been as good as everyone wants it to be after seeing what he can do in 2017. So this was a quote from Federer's longtime coach. No matter who the coach, when it's Stefan Edberg, and now it's Ivan Lubicic, you've always had Sev Luti there. So Severin Luti said, Roger hasn't really found his game yet, therefore I expect a very tough match today. And I believe this quote is from... This quote's from yesterday, so this would have been before the Danny Medvedev match. Well, it wasn't as tough as Sev Luti was anticipating, but of course all these matches are tough. Even when Roger demolishes an opponent like he did in that match against Danny Medvedev, it's always hard. There's always a lot of work involved to pull off all that seemingly very smooth and easy play that we enjoy from Roger. And one more thing before I get into the Paris draw and the interesting stories I printed out. This is a few days ago. Just some Federer human interest stories I saw. I've seen a lot of comments lately saying, it's obvious you're biased for Fed. Yes, I've said that since the beginning of the show. I like to watch Roger Federer. Of course, I love tennis. I like to watch all the players, but it's 100 times more fun to watch Roger Federer. So until the guy retires, I'm going to have a strong Fed bias. I'm sorry. So if you're thinking about comment below. Tell me, do you really think it's a problem? Does it make the show less interesting? So Federer said, regarding the World Tour Finals, we think it would make more sense to get more match practice instead of just training. Therefore, we're considering to play in Paris. I'm motivated. And I think the reason why I read that quote, because I've seen comments below, and I'm sorry this week in Texas, I've been so busy. Usually I spend a lot more time going through comments, and there's that deer again. I spend a lot more time going through comments and hand selecting some very good comments or comments that make you think, comments that are fascinating, whatever. And I put them in the show. I've been so busy here. Got to drive back to Atlanta. Well, tomorrow we'll go to New Orleans, stay there, then to Atlanta the next day to break up the long drive. I'm not going to have time to pop in as much stuff as I normally do. But I know I still read comments, even when I'm busy like this. And I've seen a lot of people say, Roger just needs more matches. But of course, he tries to stay fresher by playing less matches and prolong his career. I think this is Roger realizing that if I want to get to my highest level, I need to get some more matches in. So I think it's a good move to go play in Paris. So I hope Roger feels good tomorrow morning, Monday morning, the 29th, I believe that is. Yes. I hope Roger feels great and does decide to go to Paris. Let's look at that draw. So Rafa's on top as the 1 seed, Djokovic on the bottom. I think it's very interesting that Rafa is playing this tournament. It seemed like he might skip this whole indoor season, but he sees what Djokovic is doing, and you better believe that Rafa cares about that top spot, especially starting off next year. The fact that Rafa's here at all, I've heard some people say like, oh, maybe this will be like last year when Rafa went to the World Tour Finals, played 1 match, and then left. Maybe we could see that here. But hopefully not. Hopefully we see a Rafa-Roger final. That's always fun. A Rafa-Joker final if Roger doesn't play or Roger does play and loses. That's always cool to see. It'd be nice to see those guys actually do play a match while they're fighting for the top spot on the ATP rankings. And this draw, I must say, is not the easiest for Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic. So let's start with looking at Rafa. He could run into Fernando Verdasco, Jeremy Chardy, who's pretty good on indoors. He can hit winners very easily indoors. Jeremy Chardy, Fernando Verdasco, Richard Gasquet, Denis Shapovalov. Would love to see Rafa and Denis the Menace play again. Borna Coric, who of course, was very good in Shanghai when he beat Roger Federer. I didn't get to see all of his tournaments in Vienna, all of his matches. I didn't get to see a whole lot of Borna Coric in Vienna, but I can't even remember who I saw. I was watching a few games of Coric, and I saw him missing and making unforced errors, but still trying to play the same way he did against Roger. And then I saw him catch up and win that first set. Whoever he was playing, I can't remember. But I remember thinking, okay, Coric is still trying to play that way that he enjoyed so much success with playing against Roger Federer. So Coric is pretty tough. If he can play like that, he's going to be challenging for anyone on the tour. Dominic Thiem, I did see some of that. Again, can't adjust for the fast surfaces with the big backswing. Lost to Kei Nishikori in straight sets. A pretty easy win for Kei. Dominic Thiem could run into Borna Coric. Of course, we got Gilles Simon in there, who was so good recently, and Denis Medvedev could come through. So we could see a Dominic Thiemster against someone like a Medvedev. And Rafa could run into one of those guys. Obviously, we're not very scared of Dominic Thiem here. Borna Coric could be tough. Medvedev could be tough. And then again, if we were lucky enough to see Rafa and Thiem play again, which would be cool after their epic U.S. Open match, there goes that freaking deer. It would be very cool to see that. And Rafa's not exactly the greatest on these super fast surfaces. Rafa's least impressive surface by far is the indoor fast court. So maybe that could be competitive. Maybe that never even happens. I could see, there's one with the big antlers. It's like a reindeer over there. Hope they don't come over here and poke me with the antlers. So who knows what we'll actually see over there. These guys don't love it. Alexander Sasha Zverev. I saw someone comment that I'm crazy for saying Zverev was having a disappointing season this year. I think he is. I know he's done a lot of winning this year, but he's lost a lot of matches that if you're supposed to be the next guy, the top guy who's going to take over the sport, I just don't understand how you lose these matches. Like, we could say that against Marius Kopel in the semifinals in Basel, but 28 aces, that's pretty tough to deal with. Obviously, the guy had a great serving day, but still, it's hard to explain. A guy who's supposed to be the future of the sport has a chance to set up a finals with Roger Federer in Switzerland and can't get past a qualifier in the semifinals. Feli Lopez is in that section there. Diego Schwartzman. I mean, this is set up nice for... he could run into Francis Tiafoe. That should be very winnable for Zverev if he's playing good. John Isner's there. That's not a fun matchup on a fast court especially. Kyle Edmund, Karen Khachanov, Krajinovic. I would hope to see Isner come through there, actually, because if he plays Alexander Zverev after what we saw in Miami, I think Isner would have plenty of confidence to beat this guy who's supposed to be the future of the sport, but has a lot of losses that are inexplicable. We go down there from there. Kevin Anderson, of course, Kevin Anderson wins in Vienna. He's feeling good. Could run into John the Milkman Millman or Basilashvili. Bashes the ball. Nishikori's there. Fonini. And then, of course, Federer is in this section of the draw. Federer could have Milos Raonic in his first match. Could be a little tricky. Of course, Federer is coming off of a lot of confidence, so I'd expect him to win that. Wilfried Tsonga, who's just fighting to stay in the rankings, he's about to just drop completely off the face of the earth in the ATP World Rankings. So maybe he comes through Raonic. He's going to be inspired. He got a wild card here because his ranking's already fallen pretty low. This is a good draw for Roger here, although it's not the greatest to play someone like Milos Raonic who can get really hot and hit a ton of aces against you. But Raonic is not the Raonic he used to be, so I don't expect Roger to be too troubled coming through there. Kevin Anderson could be tough. Of course, a lot of Fed heads I know are going to comment below that it'll be very nice to see Roger beat up on Kevin Anderson after that Wimbledon defeat. And then in the bottom half, of course, we have Novak Djokovic, who could run into Cecchinato, who beat him at the French Open. Yao Souza, I don't know who to pick there. I'd go with Cecchinato. Tsitsipas, last person to beat Djokovic, right? Has Djokovic lost anyone since Tsitsipas in Canada? I don't think he has. No, he hasn't. Damir Zoomer, who, surprisingly enough, I saw Damir, I don't know if I've said this on the show, but when I was in Cincinnati, I was staying at the hotel where the players were staying, and I saw Zoomer smoking cigarettes. One of the top players in the world is smoking cigarettes. I just thought that was so crazy. It was so fascinating to me. Anyway, so Djokovic could run into Tsitsipas, Grigor Dimitrov, who, by the way, worst haircut of all time. Take a look at some of these pictures. Grigor Dimitrov, my personal friend, so it hurts me to say this, but look at this haircut. It's almost like the barber made him look like he's bald. This is the worst haircut of all time. In fact, I think he lost this match. Because look at the guy who interviews you on court after you win the match. Look at his hair. How intimidating is that? If you're Grigor and you just got this really bad haircut, do you want this guy to be interviewing you on TV, standing next to him with that haircut versus that thing? No way. He hasn't been the same since. Marin Cilic, very disappointing. I called it. I said he's very disappointing. Who did he lose to in Basel? Or was it in Vienna? Wien? Not too worried about Marin Cilic. Cole Pickle, Robin Haase from Nederland. So I think the fact that Djokovic could run into Tsitsipas pretty early. Last guy beat him. He's been playing pretty well, even though he didn't get through Medvedev. Didn't get that Federer clash that probably a lot. Maybe, Federer fans have been so nervous lately. Maybe some of you out there didn't want to see Roger versus Tsitsipas. I actually wanted to see it. I think Roger would beat him. And I think it'd be an interesting matchup. It's cool to see a big Fed versus a baby Fed anytime. Although Tsitsipas is bigger than Fed. It's kind of like Fed, but less beautiful strokes and a bigger serve with more height. So the fact that Djokovic could run into the guy who beat him last, maybe that's an opportunity to get revenge, and Joker's excited for it. But I think that's a little tricky. Other than that, this draw isn't too bad. I'm not expecting Dimitrov to make it to Joker, and if he did, that'd be great for him. Marin Cilic could be tough if he gets it going again, but he's been so disappointing lately. A Federer-Djokovic semifinal would be really good, even if Federer loses that match. And I don't think there's any guarantee. Well, remember Guy Forget, who was very upset and kind of threw the shade on Roger last year for not playing, basically tried to tempt Roger into playing this year by saying, Roger, the courts are faster. We've made them faster since last year. You've got to come play. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roger beat Djokovic here because I still think Roger playing well, like he did against Kei Nishikori, that was good. Like he did against Danny Medvedev, that was pretty good. He did in the final against Kopel today. A lot of good play from Roger. If Roger can play that good or better on a fast court, I think Roger can beat Djokovic. And I think that's what Roger's thinking. He wants to get a win like that, or at least a close competitive match like that, to have the confidence in an Australian Open final or semifinal where he could meet Djokovic and it could really, really matter. Because when we get into matches like that, that's the GOAT debate, baby. Those are very important matches. Hope you guys can see me very well, by the way. I know it's pretty much totally dark around John Newcombe Tennis Ranch, but we get a little light above me right there. So how do I see this shaping up? I want to say Rafa's going to will his way to the quarterfinals and semifinals. I like John Isner to do well here because he's really trying to make sure he gets into the World Tour Finals and would like to bring a little confidence with him. This has been, even though it started disappointingly for him at the Australian Open, even though John Isner was kind of in a slump in the beginning of the year, he's had a pretty good year for him. And I think John definitely wants to have a good showing here and go into the World Tour Finals feeling good. So I could see Isner getting through Zverev. I could see a Rafa finding a way through there or losing to Borna Coric if Borna Coric can play anything like he did. I don't think Yak-Sock is any threat to Rafa if he can even get through Gasquet or Chapo. I'll say El Chapo gets through that, although Gasquet in Paris, you might think the hometown guys, you might think the Frenchman comes through because it's Le Paris. So comment below your semifinals picks. I'm going to go with Rafa Isner, Roger Joker. I'm going to say Roger beats Joker here and lets everyone know that it's not the Joker show from now on. I know Joker's won 2 majors in a row, but it doesn't mean that Joker can beat Roger Federer playing well on a fast court. And if Wimbledon is fast enough, I think Roger has a great chance to win at the Australian Open and a great chance to win at Wimbledon. And that will lead me to my first story here that I want to read to you guys and gals out there. Just yesterday, John Newcombe was on that court behind me, addressing a group of campers. Adult campers is what they run here, is adult tennis camps. It's pretty funny, adult summer camp, and it's a lot of fun. It's amazing. People are just crazy about tennis. Come here. People love playing, love watching. It's a great place. If you're a tennis player, you definitely want to check out the John Newcombe Tennis Ranch. Come for one of their fantasy weekends. Of course, the original Tennis Fantasies camp, brought to you by the world's most interesting man in tennis, Steve Cantardi, is the best of all of them. John Newcombe said that he doesn't expect Roger to win another major, but he said you better not bet against him. It's very unwise to count Roger out, even if it looks like he's starting to slow down because he's getting older. Nuke said that he thought Federer might have been kind of hiding a back injury in that U.S. Open, this most recent U.S. Open where he lost to John Millman. I think the biggest thing was the slower court, higher bouncing court, and the conditions. With the roof, even when the roof, when it's open, there's no AC, but it's enough of an enclosure with a little opening in the top to make it even more humid and hot in there. And it was just horrible conditions. I think that was the main thing of what we saw with Roger. But maybe Nuke's right. Maybe there was something there. That's what leads me to this story. This was from the Swiss newspaper Allgäuer Zeitung. Federer was watched on by a miracle doctor. I believe this was his opening match. Federer was watched on by a miracle doctor during his opening match, sparking concerns he could still be hiding a major problem. The 37-year-old said he picked up a wrist injury during the grass campaign, and it was to blame for his recent downturn in form. Swiss newspaper Allgäuer Zeitung claimed miracle doctor Roland Biedert accompanied coach Sev Luti and physiotherapist Daniel Troxler in Federer's box during the victory against Krajinovic. Of course, Biedert picked up this miracle doctor name from the 2014 World Tour Finals, where Federer and Stan, remember they got kind of in a fight there, had a very vicious semifinal match, and Roger had to pull out. That's why that was originally, they were tied in the head-to-head, Roger and Djokovic. And then when Roger couldn't play that final at the World Tour Finals that year, Djokovic got ahead in the head-to-head because of a forfeit walkover. But then this miracle doctor, Herr Roland Biedert, was able to get Roger ready in just, a week or two for the Davis Cup final, which, of course, Stan and Roger led the team to the big win, the Coupe de Mousquetaire. How appropriate, right before the Paris Masters. Coupe de Mousquetaire. Anyway, so Federer gave this guy the credit for getting the back ready to win Davis Cup. And Federer says here, quoted, "Today I no longer have any health problems. It was different in recent months. Injured my hand during grass season, took 3 months. Being injured on the wrist or the hand, it always takes time to heal, gives me a bad feeling, blah, 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 blah." This construction paper stuff they had here is very tough to crumple. What else do we got? I have a couple corrections. One thing I want to say, a correction and a consideration. Last show, I was talking about the issue in Saudi Arabia, and I was really trying to avoid saying the M word or the A word, and I was talking about the fact that Djokovic and Nadal have to make a decision about pulling out of this Saudi Arabia exhibition in December because of the thing with the journalist, Khashoggi, however you say his name. And I thought it was a little insensitive of me to say that he got sliced, because I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say murder or assassination, because I thought maybe YouTube would flag me. Those are just words I usually don't say on my tennis show. But I'll say it now because at the time I was trying to think of a way to say it, to describe what happened to him without saying murder or assassination. And I said got sliced. And in retrospect, that sounds much worse than got assassinated. I think it's a horrible thing. Of course, I shouldn't have to say that, but just in case anyone out there misinterpreted, I wanted to say that. So that was a consideration from last show. And now correction, how many comments did I get about Karen Khachanov? It wasn't his first title. Look, he's got 3 titles. Let me read them to you. 2016, Chengdu, China, ATP 250. 2018, in Marseille, that was the Open 13. You guys see it's got a funny name. That's an ATP 250. And of course, in Rusland, Moscow, another ATP 250. Excuse me for not remembering his minor victories. And final thing for you Fed heads and tennis fans out there, Joker faces, Raw fans, and 1% of the tennis fans in the world who prefer Andy Murray, and whoever else might be out there, less than 1%. This is the last thing I got for you. I thought this was very interesting. I was reading somewhere, don't even remember where, didn't write it down. But Roger was talking about how he doesn't want his kids to have cell phones. His daughters don't have cell phones. When I was in Cincinnati, I got to watch his daughters practice on the indoor courts at the club that we were having our clinics. And I thought it was very interesting that while one of the two daughters would be with the coach working on her tennis game, the other daughter would be sitting on the bench with Mirka, not on a phone, but reading an actual book with real paper in the book. I thought that was pretty cool of Federer to try to take his, and as he said in this article I found, to try to take his children, and even though they have an extraordinary life being the children of Roger Federer, try to make it as ordinary as he possibly can. Not letting them go straight into the smartphones at such an early age, I think, is a great parenting move. Anyways, Roger said himself, and I thought it was very fascinating, after he loses a match, he says, "If I lose, I will not go on the social media for a few days, so I don't read people saying Roger is so bad, he should stop. You can never be always happy in life." So just remember, for the Fed haters that watch the show, I know people watch the show because they hate Fed, and maybe they hate me because I like Fed. Comment below what you think of that. When you say the hateful things like Roger should just quit, he should give up, all this stuff started in like 2013, to be honest with you, we've been here for a while. When you say the stuff like Roger should just give up, he's not even reading it. All right, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching Coffee Break Tennis. Thanks for hanging out with me here at John Newcombe Tennis Ranch in New Braunfels, Texas. We'll see you back in Atlanta, Georgia. Take a look at this picture of the lovely Mr. Goat, who's been helping us via satellite remote, Mr. Goat in Atlanta, Georgia. Can't wait to see that fuzzball in only a couple of days. See ya!